You probably don't remember Roll Cage, and that's quite alright. As one of the first few games that I played in my life, it recently dawned on me how infrequently this game is talked about. So I just thought a little reminiscing wouldn't hurt, eh? Let's begin at the beginning. The 1990s, when Pokemon was hitting mainstream popularity and Cartoon Network was still good. It was around the same time Nintendo entered a market where all of their lovable characters were either beating the crap out of each other or beating the crap out of each other in carts. The video game industry saw the racing genre truly emerge through the age of the arcade. With developers adding their own set of quirks and touches to the genre, we saw many diverse games. All the way from Ridge Racer, Need for Speed, and of course, the ever so successful Mario Kart franchise. It was something about that last one that had a certain charm, an addictiveness, a reason to play more, be it competitive or casual. Everyone's either made or lost friends playing Mario Kart. Since then, many games began emulating and adopting the same formula of what had become super successful. A parallel we'd only see years later with the Souls-like genre being what it is today. One of the more forgotten video games in the genre was Roll Cage, and I must say, as much as it is rough around the edges, 2001 me was mighty impressed to have played his first ever racing game, and it was bonkers. Roll Cage. 5-year-old me couldn't get enough of Roll Cage. It was my after-school treat and the game we'd all gather to play when my cousins were over. Even today, among all the crazy variety of video games we have, you wouldn't be surprised to find me playing a bit of Roll Cage in one of my 5-minute work breaks. It still remains to be just as addictive. Roll Cage is a forgotten game. It was special to me and probably many of you too. And that's pretty much why I decided to make this video, not to hold it to high praise or review it for what it was or what it is today, but more to preserve its short-lived legacy, which was certainly quite optimistic, and to take a look at the potential it had and how it fared when the genre evolved. This isn't a video to convince you if it was good or bad. This is a video to remember a game I cherished as a child, to pay homage to the developers who put in the work to bring me something I loved as an escape, and still do today. There was once a studio by the name of Attention to Detail. They developed Roll Cage under the publisher Psygnosis, not to be confused with Psyonix, the makers of Rocket League. Roll Cage was marketed with one USP, the unique and gimmicky physics engine. This engine allowed for cars to defy gravity and be driven on walls and ceilings as long as you drove at high speeds. Hell, the cars were even made to look futuristic, with the big wheels and the quote-unquote aerodynamically accurate body shape to facilitate better flow to the racing. Not to mention the car had two sides, the top and the bottom. Almost like if you failed driving through a ceiling section, you'd fall and yet you'd continue to drive. No resets, no breaks in the flow, and in many ways, this was genius. Critically, it performed decently on the PC and got rave reviews on PlayStation. It later also spawned a sequel called Roll Cage Stage 2, which was underwhelming to say the least. Eventually, Attention to Detail got bought out by a few other publishers and then was sold as subsidiaries to Eidos Interactive. With a history like that, I guess we can avoid adding salt to injury, at least for a little while. Let's just get to the meat and potatoes of this fan-frickin-tastic game. Much like many other games from the 90s, Roll Cage did not skimp out on content. It has 4 worlds, a total of 15 racetracks, 3 tournament modes called leagues, and 6 diverse characters, all of whom I love. With their cool looking decked out vehicles and a variety of stat combinations, you knew you were in for a different experience every time you picked a different character. This allowed you to play to your strengths when playing competitively, or just to protect your ego. Apart from its unique physics engine, the game allows you to use the many destructible environments in strategic ways, either to give yourself a boost or to put a stopper in the paths of your opponents. Levels are beautifully designed, from the futuristic streets of neon-lit Tokyo to outer-world planets and everything in between. Each level brings a unique quality and challenge to keep you on your feet. But the absolute highlight for me was the power-up system. Sort of derivative to what Mario Kart had done before, Roll Cage used some of the similar power-ups with a sprinkling of inspiration to come up with their own. There were the good old ones, the homing missile to take out anyone who's in first place, a shield to protect you from incoming attacks, a straight shot rocket, a spiral moving missile that I like to call the pile driver, and something that was the equivalent of nitrous. But the three best power-ups had to be the Time Warp, which sends your enemies into a psychedelic haze, slowing them down and making them lose their sense of direction. The Wormhole, or as I called it at the time, the Teleporter, which would home in on your opponents and stick to them for a while before conveniently teleporting them somewhere behind you. And the Lightning Strike, which for some reason looks like a snowflake. But don't underestimate this one. It incapacitates your enemies by slowing them down if they're ahead of you. And its pattern is random, which makes it an effective tool to sweep everything in its path. Look at me getting all excited about this game so much. For all the shit it got, we've got to give credit where credit's due. Attention to detail did a stellar job making this game as enjoyable as they could have. I bet we've all walked away with a different and unique experience with every single track and league we've raced through. For me, it was all about the speed, the thrill, and whooping my friends' asses while playing as Jet, who is my favorite even today. It seems like there were quite a few fans of this game on the inside, and that's natural. But just like me, there were quite a few more people who enjoyed Roll Cage. Let's get into the story of Grip. Robert Baker was a former developer at Attention to Detail. Somewhere in 2015, he met up with an old colleague from his Roll Cage days, David Perryman, and together they started the company Caged Element. This was a venture that would spawn Grip Combat Racing through a Kickstarter. Grip was released to mediocre and unfavorable reviews in 2018. My love for Roll Cage kinda sorta blindsided me on this one. Where other games in the genre aged well or evolved, Grip felt like it was stuck in the 1990s, even though it was released in the late 2010s. Nothing seemed like it was worth it. Well, that is, in my opinion. But the levels felt the same, and even a lot of the gameplay mechanics felt like upgrades more than dedicated renovations. It wasn't an unmitigated disaster, but it was the closest thing that came to tarnishing the legacy of Roll Cage. But I do have to give credit where credit's due once again, and pay respects to the developers who so passionately made Grip. Ultimately though, whether you love it or hate it, it's pure nostalgia for me. If this is something you've never played, and you're interested right now, it just so happens that this is a 100 MB game, and you can probably run it on any potato PC. So go ahead, download it, and check it out yourself. This game is now long abandoned, and so is its legacy. So I'm sworn to do my best in order to preserve it, considering I'm such a huge fan. It's something that brought me joy and continues to do so in a very personal manner, reminding me of the good old days as a child and then allowing me to revisit that time as an adult. It's not much, but it's something. And I hope this little something has brought you joy in the past and will continue to bring you joy today as well. Thanks for watching. So that was my video on Roll Cage. If you have any requests for other old video games that no one remembers but you do, leave them as a comment. and do leave other comments as well if you remember this game. I like starting conversations, so connect with me on my socials. Last but not least, if you want to hit the like button, go right ahead. If you want to subscribe, go right ahead. If you want to hit the dislike button, well, you're most welcome to. Leave some constructive criticism so I can do better next time, and I'll see you then. This is Kedar, signing off.